Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today, there's a big story. As we all know, that police in India have arrested 7 people in the eastern state of Jharkhand. Now, as we all know where Jharkhand is, and interestingly, they have seized 6.4 kgs. Ladies and gentlemen, 6.4 kgs of uranium from their possession. It is the second time in less than a month that the authorities have captured a large quantity of the radioactive material from the unauthorized persons in the country. Now, as we can see that this is not a joke. Nobody is selling vegetables or fruit there. You're talking about enriched uranium that is being sold in India, and I'm talking about the quantity that is 6.4 kgs. Earlier, a similar incident was also recorded in India. Around 3 to 4 kgs of this particular uranium was also seized, and that was being sold at that time at the rate of 3 crore rupees per kg, and that 3 crore rupees means that the Indian rupee, not the Pakistani rupee. So you can well imagine you can get almost half a kg of enriched uranium at the cost of a Prado or a cruiser perhaps. This is exactly what is happening in India. The mafia, the underworld, dons, these people are actually related. Now, this is how the non-state actors end up getting the possession of such material. And I'm talking about the radioactive material. And this is so disastrous. You're talking about a nuclear state, that is India. Almost every 6th man in the world is an Indian. So-called the largest democracy, so-called the secular state of India. And see, this is what is happening out there. This is the reality, and I'm not talking about 1950s or 1960s. This is the year 2021, almost in the mid of it. This is what is happening. So what should be the role of the International Agency for Energy, Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA as we call it? What sort of a role the European Union should play, as they are well aware of the fact that this has been happening and they have acknowledged that also. So we'll be talking about that. Now, before I introduce you to our guests, we have prepared a package. Let's watch that and then we'll continue our discussion.
Indian police had arrested a group of 7 people in eastern state of Jharkhand's Bokaro city who were trying to sell about 6 kilograms of uranium. This was the second incident of attempted illicit uranium sale in India in 30 days. Last month, Indian authorities had seized about 7.1 kilograms of natural uranium and arrested 2 people from Nagpur. Similar incidents have been reported in the past as well. Pakistan Foreign Office spokesperson Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry said these incidents point to lax controls, poor regulatory and enforcement mechanisms, as well as possible existence of a black market for nuclear materials inside India. The United Nations Security Council Resolution 1540 and the IAEA Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Material make it binding on states to ensure stringent measures to prevent nuclear material from falling into wrong hands. Since illicit trafficking and theft of nuclear material could lead to nuclear proliferation and the possible construction of improvised nuclear devices or radiological dispersal and exposure devices, measures to detect and respond to such acts are essential components of a comprehensive nuclear security program. India's nuclear security policy has come under increasing scrutiny. The Nuclear Threat Initiative in its security index painted India quite poorly. The imbuing threat of criminal or unauthorized acts involving nuclear and other radioactive material has grown significantly in India, clearly vindicated by the fact that from July 1998 to May 2021, there have been countless intermittent incidents of such nature. It also indicates the possibility of a nuclear market existing in India that could be connected to international players as well. The very fact that some people stole or illegally mined uranium raises concerns about nuclear safety and the security in India.
Now, to talk about this, we have with us in our studio on my right is Syed Mohammad Ali. He's the Director, Strategic Affairs, CASS. Thank you so much, Syed Mohammad Ali, for joining us on this very important issue. And we also have with us Rana Atar Javed Saab, DG Pakistan House, another senior analyst, and also Dr. Maria Sultan. She's the president of Sasi University. Rana Saab, as well as Dr. Maria Sultan, pleasure to have you both in the show as well. Thank you so much for your participation. Now, Ali, let me put a very straightforward question, because since this is your field, what exactly is going on in India, sir? It's not tomato or potato you end up buying from the fruit or vegetable market. You're talking about uranium, perhaps enriched uranium, and you're talking about 6.4 kg of it. And this is not the first time, sir. I mean, there have been so many reports. What's going on? I mean, when we talk about this word nuclear proliferation, where does India stand?
Faisal, thank you. I think it's a very important topic, and it's very important for your viewers and also the international audience to know that this is another evidence that India is perhaps the most dangerous state right now in the world for 5 reasons. Number one, it is led by extremist Hindu outfit. Secondly, it has a very large and extensive nuclear program. Number 3, its nuclear arsenal is also growing at a very fast pace. And number 4, its nuclear program is very poorly safeguarded and very badly managed. So that is an evidence that these incidents indicate and provide an compelling evidence that the nuclear fuel cycle is not properly secured, properly controlled, and there are pilferages and a close nexus with the black market. And when I say this...
Can you buy uranium from the market, sir? So it's not iron, or perhaps it's not even gold or silver for that matter. You are talking about uranium-235, if I'm not wrong, sir. And that uranium, I mean, how come is it available? And in this kind of a quantity, you were talking about 6.4 kg. I'm not sure whether it was enriched or not. Let's suppose, even if it wasn't, it could have been. And then what? I mean, are we talking about a nuclear bomb being given by the Indian mafias to any non-state actor, and perhaps it could be used against anybody, and the whole dynamics, the global dynamics could change, sir?
I think this is a very important topic, Mr. Faisal, because the international community must realize its responsibility, because more than a dozen nuclear deals have been signed with India by a number of countries, ranging from Canada, US, Australia, Kazakhstan, and so many and so forth. And it is very important for them to demand an inquiry from India, an answer from India, and review their nuclear cooperation with India. Because in their naive assumption that India will help contain China, and they are looking the other way in terms of its very poorly managed and insecure nuclear program, they are doing a huge disservice to international peace and security. And the risks that the Indian nuclear program is posing to international peace and security, because these things can go into the hands of terrorists. These things, there are more than 1.5 dozen insurgencies going on in India, and number of them are in those states where nuclear facilities are placed or being built. So this combination of a very large nuclear program, number 2, a very poorly managed and poorly secured nuclear program, and number 3, growing insurgencies in India, and number 4, India being led by an extremist ideology. I think this provides an admix, a lethal cocktail, a recipe for disaster, which deserves the concern, intervention, and thorough investigation of the international community.
I hope they do, and they do understand the magnitude of the issue. This can't go unnoticed, sir, and I'm sure this time it will not. Last time it did. Let me also bring in Rana Saab. Rana Saab, first of all, Assalamu Alaikum, and secondly, sir, now your take on this very important incident. And this is not the first time we are talking about it, Rana Saab. You have thrown light on this aspect so many times. First of all, sir, is the international community sleeping? What should be the role of EU now? And especially when we talk about the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, what should they do? I mean, uranium being sold like tomatoes and potatoes in India. I mean, this incident took place in Jharkhand. The other one was in Mumbai, if I remember. Sir.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you very much, Faisal. It's a very important subject. But let me just take your viewers and international experts and diplomats back in the history. On 23rd December 2006, ABC News reported that in the same state, Jharkhand, an entire container carrying uranium, enriched uranium, bonded to a research facility. It was stolen from another research facility. And on 10th September 2008, in northeastern state of Meghalaya, 5 people were arrested, including the headman of a village, who was actually facilitating a big racket of smuggling. And they were charged under Indian Act of stealing this uranium from a research facility. And this has been continued for a city which called Mirang, basically. This was headed there, and this was stolen from there. So my point, of course, Muhammad Ali has pointed out different various very important factors which actually should be considered by international community. I have a different intake on it. Look, we have been listening to this dirty bomb and all that for past 2 decades. And India has been overlooked by international community, by nuclear supply group, by IAEA. The dark sites, the black sites of India's, the nuclear black sites, I call them, where I'm sure, because since the incidents have been occurring for so frequently, we should not forget that Ajit Doval, the current national security advisor, has been involved in transporting thousands of fighters in Afghanistan and elsewhere. My fear is that India, I'm not sure, but India, I'm preempting it, India may use these kind of rackets and smuggling and uranium, which is like flying like a debris in the market, international black market, that India may use it in a false flag operation, combining with some sort of dirty bomb and using it and trying to implicate other
Using it
countries.
against whom? Their own people?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say to you. Because if India was so worried about their own people, their nuclear safety and security should not be like, I mean, it's like mostly, to be honest, such a huge country with such a huge defense budget. Entire world is supporting them, providing them all kind of weapons and facilities, but they have failed to make India understand that India has not since 1974, rather since 62, has not been a responsible state if it comes to the safety and security. My other point would be, will India allow international commission? There should be an international commission, consisted of IAEA experts and all those, especially Interpol and other people, Europol. So they should involve and investigate whether Indian law enforcement agency, BJP, Bajrang Dal's extreme group, or a combination of non-state actors from within Indian BJP are involved in some kind of bigger plan to destabilize the region, because it is a serious thing, as you said yourself. It's not potatoes or tomatoes. They have been stealing uranium and sending it. If you remember, there are many years ago, there was a same incident occurred, but a scientist committed a suicide, they say, a suicide close to the river bank, but it appeared that he might have been murdered by that, the same mafia, which is involved in carrying out uranium from here, smuggling internationally, and using and giving to non-state actors. India now has been involved in all kind of conflicts. India is involved in Iraq, in Syria, in Libya, in Afghanistan. So their main, which is, as I understand for now, I mean, as I come from this area, my area is the CBRN events. I would tell you this is the most dangerous thing we can all hear about a state, and everyone is silent. That is
All
even
right.
more
Now,
dangerous.
Rana sir very comprehensively explained. I mean, this is something everybody should worry about, because these matters we have practically seen in the Hollywood movies, to be very honest, that certain non-state actor or a terrorist ends up getting hold of some uranium or something similar and is threatening the entire globe on that behalf. But when you're talking about this amount of uranium being stolen or being sold to anybody, I mean, that also raises another very important point, and I hope Dr. Maria Sultan is with us to answer this question. Maria, talking about the dark web, I mean, that is one place where you can get everything. You can buy everything, you can sell everything, you can get hold of a serial killer or perhaps a hitman or something. I mean, is this what is happening? It seems like, the script of some some Bollywood movie, I suppose. It doesn't seem as if this is happening in reality and we are actually talking about it live on the national television channel. Maria, your take.
Thank you so much, Faisal. I think the unfortunate reality is that the world had been very anxious, in particular the United States and its allies, to provide India access to the global nuclear market without adequate upgrades to its nuclear security architecture. That is the reality of it. What you're witnessing now is not something new happening in India. Since 1994, we have seen that from amounts ranging from 7 kgs to 12 kgs, in certain cases 6 kgs, we have seen that India's uranium mines have been subject to nuclear theft. And they have been subject to nuclear theft in 2008. For example, a criminal was caught attempting to smuggle low-grade uranium in 2009. A nuclear reactor employee in southwest India deliberately poisoned dozens of his colleagues with a radioactive isotope, and trying to see that there are gaps in the plant security. Currently, India is envisaging to have almost 57 plus nuclear power plants, which it thinks it will operate. But the reality is this, that it has got nuclear security. Its nuclear security apparatus is being managed by the Central Industrial Security Force, which is almost 95,000 plus personnel under the civilian rather than military control. And the reality is this, that these leakages have happened over time, and they've happened consistently. And like I said earlier, so what you're witnessing now is not one, new. Number two, it is representative of the fact that the force itself, which is supposed to protect these facilities, is ill-equipped, ill-trained, and then do not subscribe to international standards. It's the only country which is in global agreements, does not have a separated nuclear fuel cycle. It is the only country which is working on indigenous nuclearization of its nuclear power plants, but it does not have an independent nuclear regulatory authority from licensing to others. It has got a security industrial security force, which is looking at all this nuclear security apparatus, which does not respond. And interesting thing is that these cases of nuclear theft are not being apprehended, or they have not been brought about by the CISF, but they have been done by the CBI. In certain cases, it's the counter-terrorist force, the counter-terrorism department, and other intra-agency security forces which come into action. So we are witnessing whole criminal gangs operating. We are witnessing that the mining operation is not safe. We are witnessing that it's not new. We are witnessing that this transition, even into this new image of a nuclear India, a new image which is globally responsible, does not relate to reality on the ground. And what's the worst thing is that while we are looking at all these missteps in nuclear security architecture in India, there seems to be no global reaction to all these missteps.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. Ma'am, exactly. You know what I was just thinking? I was thinking that if, for example, a country like Iran or perhaps any other country, even on a false allegation, that's what I'm saying, was accused, in some sort of a similar activity, or perhaps even Pakistan, things would have been so different. I am sure by this time the Security Council of the UN must have imposed so many restrictions on those countries. But when you talk about India, despite the fact that the European Union knows about it, and they've acknowledged that they do understand the magnitude of the problem, but not even a strong statement from anybody. So as far as this is concerned, simple as that, man, might is right. And if you are strong as far as your economy is concerned, you're untouchable even in the international arena. I mean, not a single word from the Americans, since India again is a part of Quad and is very close strategic ally of the Americans also. So since they are serving their stance or their interest for that matter, so nothing is going to happen. It is going to go unnoticed in one way or the other. Maria Sultan Sahiba?
I just want to say just something very small to that. I think the fact of the matter is this, it would have been all fine if it was a question of India's military security apparatus, but unfortunately there's a word nuclear attached to it. So this basically means it's a global responsibility. If there's a radiation leak out, it will be a global responsibility. And unfortunately, South Asia is nuclearized. So this basically means if it gets into the hands of terrorists in India, if it happens in a way that it is misproportionately described as an incident cycle within India's terror framework, then you are looking at very, very serious repercussions, not only for the region but also for the world at large. So what we are looking at is that it's not just about what's to its own indigenous program and whether the CISF is adequately staffed or whether the Baba Atomic Research Center can actually manage an insider threat. The reality is that India's insider threat in its nuclear facilities has gone way beyond. And then all these countries, which are supposed to be developed, which are supposed to be leading the global non-proliferation efforts, will be held accountable. And once they will be held accountable, the entire architecture on which the nuclear security regime is built will not fall into place. It will be questioned. So, yes, the United States has a decision not to talk about it. Yes, France doesn't want to talk about it because it's one of the biggest suppliers. Yes, Australia doesn't want to talk about it because they're trying to help India in gaining access. And most importantly, as part of the 123 agreement, the IAEA wants to look the other way once India builds up a strategic fuel reserve. But given all these contexts, the fact remains that if nuclear material will get into the hands of non-state actors, and what we can see now is that this is not the India which we were witnessing in 1993. This is an India which is going to see regional conflict. This is an India which is going to see terrorism which it has never seen before. So in this case, if it becomes a nuclear terrorist threat which becomes live, then I think there will be serious questions asked in all these capitals. There will be a global response from the global non-proliferation regime. But here the question is this enough at that time? Should the people in South Asia, should the people in India wait till there is actual radiation, leakage, where there's actual materials being saved and where actually loose nukes of India are going to make it to the global nuclear market, black market? And if this is what it is, then where is the sanctity of the global nuclear security regime, which is based on non-proliferation principles?
I mean, very, very alarming situation. Now, Ali, talking about the issue at one level. I mean, okay, we do understand that, because since you're an expert, I'm not, but in a layman's language, what I understand is that you need to enrich the centrifuges to a certain level, 95% plus perhaps, in certain cases it is 99 if I'm not wrong, and then when it's enriched, only then it can be used to make a bomb. I mean, that's exactly what was the allegation on Iranians, that they are enriching. So they've been told to keep it to a certain level. Now, that's a very technical subject, cannot be done in normal labs and all. It needs to have a proper setup and everything. But having said that, sir, when you talk about chemical weapons, look what the globe has done to Iraq on the threat, which was a wrong threat, later on proved, not only accepted by the former Secretary of State Colin Powell, who ended up leaving his own party. And what about the
Syria as well?
Syria as well. I was saying, about the British Prime Minister Tony Blair, who also accepted it. But the whole country was destroyed, looking for those weapons of mass destruction. A narrative was created. Again, Syria, that the government is using these chemical weapons. God knows whether those footages were correct or not. I'm not sure. But what I'm saying is that was shown to the globe, and we all witnessed what was the sort of a fallout factor of that. In case of India, sir, look at the size, look at the population, look at the thirst for money in South Asia in particular, and again talking about India. Now, sir, tell us about the magnitude of the problem. And when we talk about this dark web, I'm sure, sir, if you can find hitmen, if you can find anything and everything, all the crazy thoughts, I mean, they are there as well. A lot of people, they do brainstorming and end up coming up with some sort of crazy ideas. This is exactly what is happening, sir. Now, the threat level for South Asia because of this.
Faisal, I think it's a very delicate and a very critical international security issue for three reasons. Number one, as I earlier pointed out, the size of the Indian program is very large. India, according to
so when you say it's very large, what exactly is that supposed to be? Normally, whenever I read the Indian papers, they said that Pakistan has a bigger arsenal than us.
That's a allegation that they make in order to try to bring the spotlight on Pakistan. But let me share with you a few facts. They have 22 nuclear reactors, and they are installing 7 new reactors in future. 8 of these reactors are outside international IAEA safeguards. What does that mean? And as was earlier also pointed out by my colleague, India has a complex and unique three-stage fuel cycle. What does that mean? That means that first, related to your earlier question, basically when you talk about nuclear weapons, there are two main technologies which are used to produce nuclear weapons. One is the plutonium-based program, the other is the uranium-based program. When you talk about the enrichment process, that requires, they have up to 6 different technologies. Centrifuges is one of those.
Okay.
And then that enrichment level takes the enrichment of uranium to 90+%, and then that is bomb usable. Similarly, but an alternative route is the, it is called the back end, which requires natural uranium. Let me reiterate, natural uranium to be used in pressurized heavy water reactors. India has 8 of these reactors. So when you use natural uranium as a fuel to run unsafeguarded pressurized heavy water reactor, it produces weapon grade plutonium, which is which represents the lion's share of Indian nuclear arsenal. They have a different type of nuclear program from us, so they have relied more heavily on producing plutonium and producing those sorts of nuclear weapons.
What's the difference between the two, plutonium, uranium, or hydrogen for that matter?
When we talk about hydrogen bomb or thermonuclear bomb, that is a 2 or 3 stage nuclear device, which is a more advanced design. It could be a hybrid design, but it could be it could involve both uranium and plutonium, and also 2-stage based on plutonium alone. There are different types of designs, but basically that's an advanced design. At the basic level, when you talk about uranium-based weapons or plutonium-based weapons, what I'm trying to highlight here is the possibility, because whatever we are discussing right now is based on some Indian media news. You and I cannot verify the authenticity or veracity of that, and that is why I take it with a pinch of salt that what they claim is actually natural uranium, number one. Secondly, let me also reiterate the more important point, that when I talk about natural uranium is used in the Indian nuclear weapon program as a fuel for fueling the pressurized heavy water reactors, which are unsafeguarded, to produce the plutonium for their nuclear weapons. What does that mean? That is, those 8 reactors are outside international safeguards. There is no oversight, international oversight on these reactors. So you and I, and this has happened number of times, we don't know this pilferage, theft, smuggling, or whatever you want to call it, has happened from the safeguarded program or from the unsafeguarded program.
But
so if it has happened,
inside job basically.
Well, it is possible, but what I am trying to warn here is there is a serious possibility that this pilferage could have happened from the nuclear weapon side of the program, which is outside international safeguards. Now that makes it much more grave, because if the nuclear weapon program and the fuel cycle managing the nuclear weapon side of the Indian nuclear program is so poorly secured, then there are 2 possibilities. One, these are the 2 incidents which have been reported and come to light.
God knows how many.
We don't know how many have happened and have gone unnoticed. Secondly, besides this natural uranium, what other critical elements of the nuclear weapon program are also being smuggled, being traded, being sold on the nuclear black market? I have no idea. But since it is outside safeguards, since it is so poorly secured, it is a huge responsibility. In fact, it's a huge negligence of the international security
mechanisms. That is a mega issue.
So 2 things are an imperative for the international peace and security, that those countries which are providing nuclear fuel and nuclear technology to India must review their collaboration, cooperation and commitment with India, because in the absence of a foolproof, very secure and safe nuclear fuel cycle, giving nuclear technology and nuclear fuel to such a badly secured nuclear program is like adding fuel to the
I
fire
totally,
and
yes, sir.
adding huge risk to international peace and security.
Absolutely. Now, Rana Saab, another important area, obviously, Syed Muhammad Ali was talking about the poor regulatory and enforcement mechanisms in India. I am not even sure what sort of a security setup they have out there, the regulation or the procedures to make sure that it stays safe. Obviously, there's a lot of, it is absolutely possible, let me be very straight, that this could be an inside job, sir. So few characters
Yeah.
in certain
I just want to add,
facilities
Faisal,
are
there are
practically
few
making
facts.
money and selling this kind of product, uh, perhaps
Yeah.
to whoever, could be non-state actors, could be Mr. XYZ.
Yeah. All right, Faisal, I'd like to add a few things in here, a few facts. The facts are that since 20 years I'm following this, India's these kind of incidents, there are four incidents reported by ABC News, BBC News, German, yeah, I mean, I'm talking about 2005, 6, and then 8, and then 9. Maria mentioned 9 as well. So there are several. These two are recent incidents, actually. And Jharkhand seems to be a very weak area, a region or a research lab, because Muhammad Ali mentioned about the India media is claiming natural uranium because that is what they will do. But the point here is actually, which is very dangerous, which we all have to understand. It's not about whether the inside job creates another ideologically driven scientist exist in
That's a
India's
breach, right?
system. Yes, and that is what I'm going to explain to our viewers, that ideological driven scientists based in different research facilities might be the source of providing inside entry or blueprint to smugglers. Those, I mean, even the entire container was stolen in 2006 from Jharkhand research facility, when, of course, it will be decided, determined by international experts if there is a commission to be made. But we all must understand the risks here are: number one, is a non-state actors being provided device or kind of dirty bomb device by raw or their likes in the region, trying to create havoc somewhere within
To
Indian
be used,
occupied Kashmir.
Rana Saab also explained, to be used against whom?
Yeah, against whom? That is very important. You see, what is the false flag operation tells us in India's case for the past all these 10, 15 years, which India tried very hard to lump on Pakistan. I mean, India has carried out by, according to their own senior officials after retirement briefings, and Chuck Hagel's the former defense secretary's
Yeah.
deposition to the Senate and Intelligence Committee to Dianne Feinstein, exactly the opposite what India portrays to the world, that India has been using this. So my concern stands, as I said, number one, that India as a state will provide this material to the non-state actors in order to, and this hue and cry, it can be a cover up for that, when, as you said, on the dark web you can buy and sell, but at the same time non-state actors are monitored, mentored, and absolutely run by India's intelligence agency, and it is an open secret. Ajit Doval never hide it, actually. And I'm very concerned now on the third angle, that after the U.S. departure, Pakistan has facilitated stability in Afghanistan. India wants a new role. We do not know which kind of role they want. And these two, one after the other incidents of these kind of, we don't know what India and others, its allies are holding in their bag. We have to understand that. That's why we are preempting this our analysis, all of us, to ensure that unless an international commission is not commissioned to investigate and examine what kind of role of police has played in India, whether there is a need of Interpol, Europol, IAEA's, this verification and security department of IAEA must get involved. And as Muhammad Ali pointed out, that it's very much likely. We do not know, but it is very likely they're being stolen from out of IAEA's mandate at me reactor. And secondly, as we all know, India is building this nuclear city, and this all this these things are only clearly indicators of something bigger, we must really campaign to create awareness and convince United States and Europeans say that we are aware of it. Well, if you are aware of it, please take an action now. Instead, you went in Iraq on the false this. We understand that Saddam Hussein was involved in a very dangerous war with Iran. It killed many millions of people. He used chemical weapons against Iran. But look at the case of Iran, for example, and other countries, the responsibility which they show when it comes to the negotiation. They all try to comprehend each other, but only India gets away. And it's been 20 years, I'm saying. You can go back in international press, at least 15 years. I have presented now to you dates by dates from ABC News, from BBC. You can really, a general, ordinary person can sit on the net today and they can find out incident after incident. And guess what?
Within a
They
matter of
all
months,
being,
this is the second time it's happening in India.
yes, this is in this second in 1 month. Look,
Yeah,
I have
exactly.
given you 2006 December 23rd, and then 10th September 2008, and it's in a different areas. I mean, these are stolen from where to where, from research facility heading towards. In the first incident in 2006, it was heading towards a nuclear reactor close to Bombay. I mean, this is absolutely reported. You can just go and find it. So that means it is a bigger planning than what we expect now. I mean, it cannot be like this. If this is happening, then India is no more than a banana republic. I mean, India, we understand at the moment the way
I
India is
agree with you, Rana Sahab. Absolutely
yeah, I
spot on.
mean,
Now, Maria
this is what
Sultan
I can
Saiba,
conclude. Yeah.
yeah. Maria Sultan Saiba, I still remember one name, and same name as yours, sir. Sayyid Muhammad Ali, I'm talking about Chemical Ali. Chemical Ali of Iraq. The man was branded with this, and eventually the whole world knew about him because the way he was exposed, the way there were stories conducted in him, the way the Americans were looking, to arrest him once the Iraq invasion took place. But sir, over here, we do not even know the fate of the people who were caught earlier, what happened to them, what is the status of the case. In this particular case, the SP, Mr. Jha, interestingly, Maria Sultan Saiba, in fact said that this material, perhaps that is uranium, has been sent to the lab. I mean, you will tell us better that how do they in fact work on it, and they will determine. I am not even sure whether the lab report would be correct or not, because the Indians, I mean, they have mastered the art of hiding and lying. Now, ma'am, 7 people have been arrested, no details, and they believe that the main suspect is still, has not been arrested. First of all, your take on this point that, ma'am, will this become an international issue, or do you believe that the media and the kind of influence the Indians have, it is going to go under the carpet? Maria Sultan Saib.
Well, like I said before, unfortunately, it's not going to gain any international traction. We haven't seen any international convention, any regime which India is signatory to in the nuclear security architecture actually respond to it. Nobody's even asked the Indian government to respond to these excesses. Secondly, with reference to your statement when it comes to the use of these labs. So most probably these are some of the research facilities which must have given this input. And also interestingly, in the last case, the amount was around 7 crore or plus, so it cannot be that of a natural uranium. This means it is a public facility which could do the forensics, and if it's a public facility, then it means it's a nuclear-related facility. Only there you'd be in a position to actually ascertain what is the street value of the uranium which is being sold in the black market. Secondly, the organization which came back with this report is Baba Atomic Research Center, which itself has been part of the nuclear threat scenario for long. At one time, its scientists were providing black diamonds, irradiated black diamonds. Another time, they were smuggling and were in cahoots with the criminal gang. So In terms of how it's operating, it is operating by the excesses, it is operating by the laxes in the Indian nuclear security regime. And will the world respond to it? No, the world will not respond to it, because then it would mean that all those undertakings which different governments have done at different times for India's safeguarded facilities, as well as unsafeguarded facilities, will stand accountable. So you will not see the bigger parties actually talking on it. You will not see, what I think is appalling at this moment is not that these governments such as, the United States or France are talking on it. What's appalling is that you don't see the Greenpeace movement talking about it. You do not see the concerned scientists talking about it. You do not see the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists or others watchdogs actually taking India into account. You do not see any Twitter trends on it. You don't see any such activity. So it's not just the state architecture which seems to be silent. It is also the so-called liberal thought leaders which seem to be absent in this debate. And I think that is alarming. So in this case, I think the responsibility would essentially lie with Pakistan, and it will lie with our media to take this issue further and to raise the necessary concerns, which we think are important if the world has to recognize the responsibility which must be seen when it comes to nuclear.
I mean, Pakistan along with China as well, because ma'am, when you talk about the adversaries of India, these two really come at the top. Now ma'am, another very important issue. I mean, earlier when two people were arrested, and more than 15-16 pounds of uranium was in fact was seized. That was illegal, obviously, but we do not know what exactly happened. I mean, this was the case in Maharashtra, and now we are talking about Jharkhand. Ma'am, and the police reports that the national gang, now just look at this statement, the national gang involved in the international uranium trade. So obviously there is an international arena where there are people with huge bucks, and they have a absolute commitment that they will be able to get hold of this, because this sells like hot cake out there. Now ma'am, when there is a national gang involved, what exactly is India doing? I mean, it's not a trade like you're exporting rice or perhaps wheat or something. Uranium.
Actually, I think we have to see in this case what is the state of the Jharkhand state in India, where these uranium mines are. And if you know, and I'm sure you're very cognizant of the fact that there is a Jharkhand movement at this moment underway in India at this very moment. And it's also the fact, like I said, there's a civilian structure which is actually dealing with it. They're understaffed, ill-equipped, part of the criminal net. The organizational culture of India's nuclear program, unfortunately, has been infested with criminality. It has been infested with black trade. It has been infested with actually going and linking to all these groups. What we're fearful is that what if such uranium, which they're trying to sell to the international market, actually lands up in Afghanistan, lands up with the ISIS, lands up with other actors, and how do the world respond to that? Would we be looking at another regional nuclear security situation which we would not understand? And then the fact is that how can you come up with a signature with street value which is so high, because natural uranium does not sell for that high. And even if you look at the earlier cases of nuclear theft in India, they've all been at different levels of radiation, at different levels of enrichment, at different levels of reprocessing.
Correct.
So this indicates that the system is actually failing, one. Number two, the Indian scientists are involved in the nuclear black market. Number three, there are actual terrorists on the ground which can actually use these. And number four, the world will have hell to pay for this. So in this case, there is a lot of responsibility, a lot of question marks, and perhaps time has come that there should be certain apprehensions. If the UN Security Council can come forward and talk about 1540 as a global responsibility, by the way, under 1540, if there are certain excesses such as these, Chapter 7 can be invoked for the UN Security Council. That means sanctions, that means use of force, and so on and so forth. So the real question is that why is the UN Security Council actually silent about it? The question is, where are these so-called resolutions such as 1540 and others which make such issues an international crime?
All right, Maria Sultan and Rana Saab, what a pleasure to have you in the show. Thank you so much for your participation. And once again, I would like to say that whatever is happening is something of prime concern. Now, Sayyid Mohammad Ali, last quick comment. I mean, when we hear that the European Union is aware of nuclear material proliferation incident in India, what is that supposed to mean? What sort of a value does that carry? And secondly, you know, I was reading that the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1540 and the IAEA Convention of the Physical Protection of the Nuclear Material make it binding on states to ensure stringent measures to prevent nuclear material from falling in the wrong hands. Explain this to us, sir.
Very quickly, Faisal, I think nuclear security is a global responsibility upon all the international community, all the states who want to benefit from the nuclear technology. Correct. The first and foremost responsibility is that they should use it responsibly. They should provide foolproof safety and security mechanism. But since India has not done it, so let me conclude by saying that earlier they have been misleading the world by diverting the technology provided to them for peaceful purposes towards strategic purposes. That's why Nuclear Supplier Group was formed. So what the international community needs to do quickly, they need to review their access and provision and cooperation with India on nuclear technology and materials. Number two, international community should review their support for the Indian case for Nuclear Suppliers Group membership. Number three, the international community in general and the US in particular should demand nuclear restraint from India, because if these things go unpunished, then this represents a huge neglect.
This could lead to a third world war, sir. Honestly speaking, I mean, this could be a very strong statement, but honestly speaking, this is how they do it. And this is the era of non-state actors, and possessing such kind of material means anything and everything is possible.
Absolutely.
Sayyid Mohammad Ali, thank you so much for your participation. That's all we have for this hour. Time for news now. I'll see you again tomorrow at 8. Till then, you take good care. Allah Hafiz.